And welcome to the broadcast on this May 1st, 2025, Worldview Tube Washington Report. All right, there's always something going on, isn't there? How many of you think AOC might run for president? Oh, yeah, I would not be discounting her, folks. I would not be discounting her at all. And in fact, she was just asked about it. And we're going to go to Jim here in just 1 second. But listen to what AOC just had to say not too long ago. Oh, she's frozen. Hey, that's a miracle. She's frozen. I don't know. I'll just try her again. Let's give it a shot, Tater Tot.
You thinking about running for president or senate?
Because of my Instagram post?
No, the video, the campaign style video. It's got everybody talking.
I mean, listen, it's a video, and frankly, I think what people should be most concerned about is the fact that Republicans are trying to cut Medicaid right now, and people's health care is in danger. And that's really what my central focus is. This moment isn't about campaigns or elections or about politics. It's about making sure people are protected.
All right, Jim Paff joins us. Jim, is AOC running, or is she just being a tease?
Well, I think she is trying to figure out if she can run for president, but she's probably looking more strongly at the Senate and taking on Schumer if she thinks she can do it, because the polls have Schumer down in New York, below her. So we'll see. It's hard to tell. I think she is kind of nipping with it a little bit because, she's going to have the cachet leftist, wealthy liberals wanting to put money in her campaign if she runs, because there are some people that like her. I think the Democrat Party, though, is trying to figure out who they are right now. They don't quite know, and I don't even think that everyone knows that she's the answer. There's a moderate movement already beginning to take place in the Democrat Party to try to pare back the radical leftist progressive wing.
Are they going to be able to do that, Jim?
No, they're not going to be able to do that. But I can't remember which member of Congress it was. It just is escaping me right now. But just today was saying, listen, we need to get back to JFK, lowering taxes, moderate government spending. And no, that's not going to fly in the Democrat Party, because the Democrat Party is a progressive leftist, really, frankly, socialist and certainly with her communist leaning party. That's just who they are right now. And they have to take a lot of people down before they can get back to being the JFK party that they used to be.
President Trump boarded a smaller plane. I think everybody knows by now, whatever plane he is on as president becomes Air Force One. He boarded a smaller plane because he's going to, I think, Tuscaloosa, Alabama, which obviously has a smaller airport, apparently, so he can't fly the big 747. But here's footage of him taking off not too long ago, headed toward Tuscaloosa to give a commencement speech. I understand some of the alumni at the school, at the university, the college, they're tipped. But that would be, I would think in Alabama, that'd be a very, very small minority. I mean, he's coming down here to conservative land. This is God's country down here, folks. Alabama, Tennessee, Mississippi, he's going to get a big welcome tonight at that commencement address. I'm assuming it's probably going to be played live, Logan, right? So he just took off at, it was 5:30 Eastern Standard Time. So there you go. Beautiful plane. Jim?
I just want to say, as a Tennessee Volunteers fan, I'm not particularly happy about him going to Tuscaloosa. I mean, remember, I went to high school there in Tennessee. I went to the Webb School down in Bell Buckle, Tennessee. That's my alma mater, and I'm a Vol for life.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, being here in Tennessee. I mean, the minority, there's a small minority, they're upset he's showing up, some of the alumni. I mean, give me a break.
Listen, it's Trump country down there.
That's right.
That is an odd amount of people. In fact, I did a weekend radio show in Birmingham. Used to be on Crawford Broadcasting in Denver for 4 years.
Did you really?
Oh, yeah. For 4 years, I was on KLZ in Denver, daily radio show. But I was doing a weekend show on the Crawford station in Birmingham for a while. I do love Alabama. Gary Palmer's a good friend of mine. I've known him for years. This is this is going to be actually a pretty blowout speech when he does it, because it's Trump country. That's the kind of people that really care about this, what this country is about, and it's a pittance of amount of alumni who are going to be getting mad. The rest of them are going to be excited.
All right, so let's go to Chuck Schumer. Chuck Schumer's making some news. Here we go. Watch Chuck.
The polls this week show Trump has the lowest 100-day approval rating since they started polling 80 years ago. The lowest. Yes.
There's a poll out today that has your approval rating lower than any other congressional leader at 17%. Are you concerned that you may be a liability for your party?
Polls come and go. Our party is united. We're on our front foot. We're stepping forward and going after Trump and having real success.
Okay, so he wanted to talk about Trump's polling, and then when a reporter said, you've got one of the lowest poll numbers going for someone in your position, oh, polls don't matter.
John McLaughlin kind of scoped out what this poll was. It only sampled 37% of Trump voters. He won nearly 52% of the election nationally, and the popular vote nationally. It was a scam poll. It was designed to try to reduce the positive response that Donald Trump would get on the 100 days. Mark Meredith, no, not Mark Meredith, whatever his name over at Rasmussen, has been, their daily tracking poll has Donald Trump, right in the 47-50% range in favorability. They were one of the most accurate pollsters, Rasmussen was, in 2024. So I think I'm going to go with that poll. Listen, the things that Donald Trump is doing are exactly the things that he campaigned on, and exactly the things the American people have said consistently in polls they want to happen. No way is he at 39% approval. That's a pipe dream.
How do you rate his first 100 days on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest? How do you rate him?
I give him an 8.5, maybe a 9, because there are a few things I'm concerned about. Listen, I haven't seen all the work of Doge just yet, and we had big promises with Doge, and of course, and we'll probably talk about it later, you've got Republicans in Congress not even attempting in the reconciliation bill to implement Doge. That's a different matter. But I haven't seen all of the actual results of Doge. Now, we're seeing some of it. They have some transparency on the website. But we were promised, $1.5 trillion, $2 trillion maybe cuts. We could do that just by eliminating everything that's been passed of extra spending above 2019 levels since COVID. That would be an easy thing for Congress to do. Now, Donald Trump is trying to get rid of waste, fraud, and abuse. So that's why I say 8.5, 9. I mean, by the way, the first 50 days is a 10. But I'm trying to figure out what's happening with the Doge thing. Once I get settled in on that, maybe I come back to my 10 really quickly. But I couldn't be more thoroughly pleased than I am.
Good for you. All right, let's Caroline Leavitt and Steve Miller. Woo, they were on their game. Look at this. Here we go.
Good morning, everybody. We're capping off the first 100-day week with our morning briefing. How does everybody feel? You like the morning briefings? Okay, we do too. That's why we're doing them. It's good to see all of you. I brought a friend out here today who's happy to take your questions. But first, some remarks. At 11 o'clock.
All right, I'm going to skip ahead to Stephen. Let's see if we can get to Stephen, because Stephen had a little message for him today. Let's see if we can get Stephen, Logan. See if we can get Stephen up here.
National security. And last
to secure our homeland.
Okay, here we go.
As we gather this morning to continue our celebration of President Trump's unprecedented and historic first 100 days in office, what are without doubt the greatest 100 days to begin any American presidency in the history of this nation. This week, you've heard about the historic actions President Trump has taken to secure our homeland, to secure our sovereignty, to secure our economy and our supply chains and our industrial base. Today, you're also going to hear from me about what President Trump has done to secure our values, our culture, and our way of life from the unwavering assault from the radical left and the communists and the Democrat Party. One of the most significant...
Can we stop right there? And the communist in the Democrat Party. Woo! God bless him for saying that, because that's what this is, Jim.
The communist approach is not only restricted to the form of government that they would like to have, and that is essentially a combination or somewhere around a Maoist and Stalinist, somewhere in that area type of governing system. And frankly, there's many aspects of that there are real Democrats who would like to have. We just saw this with the censorship industrial complex, for example, and many other things. That's what they'd like to do. But what's also really important to note is that every communist method is about driving chaos into a system so that they can bring enough of it into play to wrest power from the current governing system. This is what happened with the Bolshevik Revolution. It's what happened when Mao finally was successful at kicking out Chiang Kai-shek from China. And many other examples in smaller countries. It's about building chaos, putting a strong foot forward to cause the people in the country to doubt their governing system, and then to come in with lies. Oh, by the way, it's happened in Cuba too, to come in with lying promises of a workers' paradise or whatever they want to say it is, and then it ends up being an authoritarian system. That's what many of these Democrats stand for. It's certainly what AOC stands for.
Let's see what else he says here today.
Crises that President Trump inherited upon taking office was the wave of racial discrimination, so-called diversity, equity, and inclusion policies that have taken over both public sector and private sector entities all across the United States of America. Perhaps the most dramatic example of this is that our air traffic controllers were being hired and promoted based on race and gender, not their ability to conduct our nation's air traffic. I would estimate that probably 90% of Americans would agree with the statement that airline safety should be based on your ability to keep, airline safety jobs should be based on your ability to keep planes landing and taking off and flying safely, not on what demographic box you check. President Trump has ended across the entire federal government all hiring, recruiting, retention, promotion, and training based on race and sex. This includes in our law enforcement agencies. So again, when we took office, even in sensitive law enforcement, national security, and intelligence agencies, we were hiring individuals not on their ability to carry a weapon, not on their ability to keep Americans safe, not on their ability to conduct sensitive intelligence operations, but based upon race and sex. And obviously, that is unacceptable. It's going to be merit-based across the whole federal government. But this wasn't just the federal government. This was the private sector, and this was also, of course, our entire university and education system. So President Trump's Department of Justice, working with other departments and agencies, have made clear that this administration is going to fully enforce Title VI, Title VII, and Title IX of our federal civil rights code. Discrimination based on race and sex is prohibited by law, and this administration will vigorously enforce that. And companies, small or large, that violate plain text of federal statutes will face appropriate financial and other penalties. This administration is not going to let our society devolve into communist, woke, DEI strangulation. We are going to have a system of merit, which is not just a social and cultural issue, it's an economic issue. When you hire, retain, and recruit based on merit, as President Trump has directed, you advance innovation, you advance growth, you advance investment, you advance job creation, you create the best and safest product for all Americans.
Yeah. I mean, sanity has returned to the podium at the White House in the last 100 days, has it not?
Oh, listen, I was able to listen to this entire press conference with him there. It was a tour de force on the facts, on the reality. And it is really helpful to get these clear statements out there, not just in terms of what we oppose politically, but to really show that on a practical basis, both as it relates to the law and as it relates to how companies should operate, that this entire DEI and further beyond that ESG, all these efforts to mold companies into the shape of some political agenda is finally, the government attempts to implement it into society have finally stopped. We are going to get at a minimum a 4-year reprieve from this, and it's going to be very healthy. We have a lot of people in society who have been taught to accept these standards that are antithetical to truth and twist truth entirely. You know, these people are relativists until they go up to a stop sign or a stoplight. They'll stop for that so they don't get hit by the cars going through the road, but they attempt to run all the rest of us through the road to the destruction that it can cause. And we have had many accidents, so to speak, using the analogy, in this country that finally have stopped. It'll give us a chance to reprieve from this. So you've got this whole transgender thing and transitioning thing has begun to greatly reduce. It's still out there, but it's greatly reduced. You're not seeing it talked about in culture anywhere, and that's largely due to Donald Trump's leadership and putting a light on the problems of all this.
Indeed. Now, today is the National Day of Prayer, and here's what President Trump had to say in the Rose Garden today.
We're bringing back religion in our country, and we're bringing it back quickly and strongly. Because for America to be a great nation, we must always be one nation under God, a phrase that they would like to get rid of, the radical left. But Ben, I don't think we're going to let them get rid of that, right? We're not letting them get rid of that.
He's talking to Dr. Ben Carson there. Pretty amazing. We've gone from this war on people of faith, conservatives, conservative Christians, people that go to the Latin Mass. And now we've got committees and commissions set up with the Attorney General and others to go through the federal code and do whatever they can to change things where we're not going to tolerate the persecution of people of faith. Again, what they've done here in just these areas are not necessarily what I thought they would do in their first 100 days, right? There's certain things I thought priority, and this might be down here, but it seems though some of these things, they were moved to the top pretty quick. I mean, because I guess you realize that if you don't have freedom of speech, you don't have freedom of religion, if people of faith feel threatened and disenfranchised and targeted, you're not living in a free country. And I think President Trump wants everybody to know, we're free. You're free. Go about your business. Go about your free speech. And if that includes proclaiming your faith and tying your faith to your occupation and your daily life and your convictions, go for it. We're not opposed to that.
I think that a big reason for it being such a high priority is that Donald Trump was 1 inch from death in Butler, Pennsylvania. It seemed to have a profound effect on him personally. In fact, just when he was right there, now he's really good at hiding any emotions that he might have. And he may have just been trying to make sure he could catch his place on the page because he usually uses the teleprompter. But it did seem that he was making a personal pause there for just a moment. I think he feels this, even if that's not what that was. I think he really does feel this. I think he understands how important this is now, maybe more than ever in his life. I feel good for him that that's the case, even though I wouldn't put him through what he went through to get there. But there is no liberty. There has been no liberty of any substantive sense in this world except for the Judeo-Christian ethic. You saw some pop-ups a little bit in ancient Greece and ancient Rome, but really, honestly, there was no staying power to that. And they were both cultures that were kind of brutal, mostly the Roman culture even. But we in the West, even with all of our faults, have built a culture that, by and large, at least past the Middle Ages, the brutality went away and freedom and liberty came to people to be able to advance their livelihood, particularly from the 16th century on. And we should be thankful for this. There's nothing like the kind of liberty we understand that has ever existed in this world, in all of history, except what has been happening in the West, and particularly in the United States over the last 300 or 400 years.
Mm. Well, and you mentioned his, being very sincere about it. Look at what Dr. Phil had to say about that today, the Rose Garden, the sincerity of President Trump's convictions here.
Mr. President, I can't tell you, first off, how proud I am to see religion coming back to the White House. God bless you. God bless you for doing this. And let me tell you, it's not a popular thing to do in America right now. And Speaker Johnson is here, and you know he's a man of religion, but you know, I've sat with President Trump with no cameras around, nobody listening, nobody watching. And I'm telling you, this is a man of deep faith, a man of deep conviction. And this is a man that wants this country to have a heart and have religion. And God bless America for giving us President Donald Trump. And when nobody's listening and nobody's looking, this man cares about every single person in America, independent of race, color, creed, whatever. And it comes from the heart with him. And I am proud to call him my president. And God bless you, Mr. President.
Well, there you go. That seemed totally unscripted. So good for Dr. Phil. Jim?
Well, and listen, I worked at Focus on the Family for some years and directly with Dr. Dobson. I remember in the public policy department there. I remember because Shirley Dobson used to run National Day of Prayer for many, many years. And the tension that would mount over putting that thing together because of the pushback in Washington, D.C., even during Republican administrations, was very interesting to observe. Whenever the roll-up would come, that tension would rise. Now, she handled it very gracefully and very competently and capable because she is an amazing woman. But, you know, that what has been a problem in this country for a long, long time. We relied on God's grace and favor. We appealed to God's grace and favor amongst many presidential administrations all the way back to our founding. And that has been harder and harder to do over the last few decades. So it's very appealing and very satisfying to see Donald Trump in sincerity determined to help lead it as best he can, the American people, to a reliance upon God's favor, because he knows that he's had, by God's divine providence, favor on his life. And I'm not trying to make him into some particular saint. And in fact, I don't even think he's trying to. He knows what his reputation has been in past years of his life. But I see he and Melania having a good relationship. That's very public. They're very good at the public, but I also think it's sincere. And I hear it in the background being there. This is a man who is in the right time to do the right thing on this particular issue. We need this. We need, as believers, to decide that we are going to see God on our own very deeply and humbly thank God for his great grace that he's shown us so far, because we don't deserve it as a country. We have no deserving of any of it. And I'm grateful that we have a president in office that understands that and wants to help us seek the one who does grant favor and help to nations who will humble themselves before him.
Yeah, well said. I stumbled on this today. This is an interesting little story, a little behind-the-scenes story about Donald Trump and the gospel message. Listen to the Duck Dynasty, one of the Duck Dynasty sons.
He's like, hey, you're not getting any younger. And there's people after you. He was actually kind of predicting, the prophecy about.
This was back in 16, so yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. He was like, hey, somebody will, they're going to try to kill you and all that. So it was actually really profound when I think back on that. And he shared the story of Jesus, and he wrote it down.
Just so you know, he's talking about his dad doing this and writing it down on a piece of paper for the president who was running in 2016. Here we go.
And he had the, what's the phrase he always uses for the symbols?
Hieroglyphics.
Hieroglyphics, like the arrow pointing down and the cross and the tomb and the arrow, coming back and the arrow coming back down as Jesus coming down. And so you can kind of figure out what that means about Jesus came to earth. He died. He's raised. He went to the right hand where he's at right now, and he's coming back. And so he handed the paper to President Trump, and he's like, you need to move on that. This needs to be the core of everything you do. I mean, it was very profound. So I say all that to say this one tidbit of the story. So later on, he came to Monroe, and I forgot exactly what was going on, but my family got involved, and I think Willie introduced.
It was when he was running in 2020 when he lost. It was that.
Okay, so that
next campaign.
So we're now fast forwarding 4 years. Well, my dad was there. I think my dad led a prayer at the event. We were all there. My whole family went. And this place, you could not stick another person in the Monroe Civic Center. Well, while Willie, I think, was introducing him, my dad was standing behind him, and President Trump pulled out of his pocket that same gospel presentation that my dad had given to him 4 years before.
Wow.
And he's like, I want you to know I still have this. I hadn't forgotten. It's beautiful. I hadn't forgotten. So I thought that made the story more powerful.
Yes.
In that, you know, you can say what you want to about the gospel, but people don't just ignore it.
Had you heard that prior to right now? 'Cause I just heard that today.
No, I hadn't heard that yet. I love those guys. Phil Robertson is the bomb. One of the greatest, most clear voices on culture and society and the gospel that we have out there right now. And listen, Donald Trump is truly affected by these things. There's no doubt about it. And certainly when he was coming back, I'm sure he pulled it out to make sure that Phil saw it and that he remembered. And he might not look at it every day, but he did remember it. And this is really something that Christians have lacked in society. We have had a progressive movement, documented, by the way, by my sort of friend Megan Basham in Shepherds for Sale. We've had this progressive movement to try to take over the church that's failed, especially after Christianity Today made their stupid flop on Easter, which is another story. But this is really a problem that we've begun to overcome if we are willing to just make these simple moves as people who express faith in Christ and just show the love of Christ throughout the world, and also the firmness of reality. I mean, there really is judgment on nations that turn away from him and that act in the pagan way that the vast majority of Democrats do. I mean, it's really a pagan move to take over the nation and to kick out anybody of Christian faith. But followers of the way need to stay firm, push forward, get involved in your culture, get involved in politics, just get involved in your office and just talk to people in the same manner that Phil Robertson did. You can radically transform this country very quickly, because the power of the gospel of the kingdom is not something that can be stopped. And it is something that if we just humble ourselves and pray, we could have restored in this nation. We just got to take the steps, every one of us individually.
Yeah, grace and mercy are really only extended to those who repent, right? I mean, we all have grace and mercy and that we can take another breath, right? That the rain falleth on the fields of the righteous and the unrighteous. So there's that general grace. But yeah, if our country really wants to see healing, there needs to be that repentance for the amount of grace and mercy we really need. And because I think God can actually be extending grace and mercy to us as a country and those of us that are trying to do that and are doing that, but also be judging our country. I think our country can be seeing grace and mercy while also being set up for judgment. And I'm very concerned about that as I see Islam taking a foothold and spreading in our country. So we need to pray that, we can see the grace and mercy overcome the judgment that's to come.
Well, we need to get that right, too, because I was just listening to a video, someone pushing back on some evangelist, saying, oh, no, it's by faith we are saved. And, no, it's not by faith. It's by grace through faith, Galatians says. And we need to understand that it's God's mercy that moves on a nation. It's not our even obedience. It is our repentance and seeking his favor and asking him to bring it upon us. It is not us doing anything. We need his favor by humbly going to him. And the nation that does so is always blessed. And it's one of the greatest reasons we've had real blessing in this country throughout most of our history.
Yeah,
because it's really uphold it.
Blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord. Jim Paff, theconservativecaucus.org. That's our broadcast. Take care. Tonight on the Worldview Report, Steve Kirsch analyzes new Pfizer shot data supplied by the state of Florida to come up with a stunning figure for the number of Americans the COVID shot has killed. Israel gets hit by a wave of historic fires. Is it terrorism? A new report details how American researchers funded by the Department of Defense have helped the Chinese military get an edge in technology. The world is spending more on military armaments than at any time since the peak of the Cold War. And President Trump revoked the visas of thousands of foreign students with criminal records. All these stories and more as the Worldview Report begins right now.
This is Worldview Report with host Brandon House. Whether it is news from the nation's capital or your state capital, from the classroom to the boardroom, from national security to national and local news that impacts you and your family, Worldview Report is your trusted source for vital and uncensored news. And now, here is Brandon House.
Good evening and welcome to the Worldview Report. Leading off tonight, there's a new scientific paper that just came out of Florida. It compares the non-COVID all-cause mortality between the two major vaccine brands using a very carefully matching methodology. ACE researcher and statistician Steve Kirsch reports that the results, well, they were stunning. Kirsch says in a Substack post that if you got the Pfizer shots, your mortality rate was 36% higher than Moderna over the 12 months from when you were injected. Here's what he wrote, quote, "That's causality, no hedging anymore. This study is definitive and bulletproof. They did everything right. Let's assume, to be super generous, that the Moderna shots are super safe and don't increase all-cause mortality at all." That's not true, of course, but this is the best case, end quote. That means that Pfizer shots, at a minimum, must increase your all-cause mortality by at least 36%. What does that mean? Kirsch explains, he said, quote, "So that means that Pfizer single-handedly likely killed at least 470,000 Americans if the results in other states are similar to what they found when they looked in Florida," end quote. At least 470,000 Americans dead. These are husbands, fathers, mothers, and siblings who would still be with us if they hadn't gotten those shots. Kirsch goes on to state, quote, "Now, it's possible that all the bad Pfizer batches went only to Florida, but that seems highly unlikely due to the strict quality control measures that the FDA has in place," end quote. The vaccine dose fatality rate, well, is greater than the infection